What's going on, champs and chambettes? It's FireMonkey here, and today we have to talk about Chapter 5 Season 1 and how movement's going to be getting a very interesting change. Now, something I want to mention here is that a lot of the stuff we actually talk about in today's video, can I even dig this up? There we go, is going to be things that can change over time, because obviously this is information regarding a season or a whole entire chapter that is multiple months away, and we are currently in V26.00, whereas Chapter 5 Season 1 is set to be V28.00, so there's a lot of time for Epic Games to actually change some stuff around, and some of the things we mentioned in today's video might not actually represent the finished quality once it eventually releases. However, the information we are going to be sharing is information that, as of right now, would be what we would get if we received Chapter 5 Season 1 tomorrow, basically. So let's start it off with something very simple by talking about grind rails, such as over here in Mega City. Those grind rails and locations like that are going to be staying in the game, and they're going to have some slight changes here and there. Now, in terms of the actual changes, they have like a whole entire new data table for it, and nothing's actually been changed data-wise, but they do have it specifically mentioned for Chapter 5 Season 1, meaning by time that season comes around, we most likely will see them change some things, such as, you know, how fast you go, how slow you go, stuff like that, and that is something that is kind of, you know, pretty prevalent right now when it comes to new changes happening with Chapter 5. They have a lot of these old movement systems, such as grind rails, being updated with brand new data tables specifically for the brand new chapter. Now, to explain what these data tables are, think about it like this, right? A data table has all the information you need to know regarding how everything's going to work for a Fortnite update or something. So let's say, for example, a weapon gets nerfed. That is in the Athena weapon range, you know, like game data information area. Let's say that Epic Games decides that, oh, we're going to nerf a mechanic like hurdling. That has a data table specifically for it where they can change specific values and stuff without completely requiring an entire update, right? It's a way for them to kind of do hotfix changes and everything else, while also having a streamlined way of actually updating everything, pre-updates, post-updates, all that type of stuff, and that is basically what the data tables are. So, you know, just so you're aware, these new data tables being worked on, we already have versions of them in the game right now. They kind of are how everything gets affected, such as, you know, moving, running, sprinting, all that type of stuff. They all get affected through these data tables. Even things such as how fast the storm goes and stuff like that is managed through these type of data tables. Now, with that said, of course, we're not just going to be like, oh yeah, there's new grind rail stuff happening for the new chapter. That would be a pretty boring video, because we also have a lot more movement stuff that has been leaked and stuff, and thanks to G-Matrix Games over on Twitter, we have a massive list to kind of talk about with you guys. So firstly, let's talk about hurdling. You may have forgotten what hurdling is at this point, but if we go ahead and go over here, you see this object right here, this little like stairway. If I was running into it, hurdling would be the object, or, you know, the feature that makes me automatically kind of mantle over it or something, such as if I jump right here, this animation that plays as I'm going upwards, this is mantling, and this is a feature that, you know, has existed for the longest time, and hurdling was a light version of mantling, where just by sprinting into an object like this, it would actually do the mantle feature like that right there, instantly, without requiring me to jump or anything like that. That has been disabled for the longest time, and Epic Games did say that they plan to bring it back. However, they've only really updated it and got it working for creative mode, and they've never actually brought it back to the core game mode, which is a little odd. However, based on the data tables and everything else that have been worked on behind the scenes for the new chapter, as of right now, hurdling is set to be re-enabled with Chapter 5 Season 1, and with all the changes and everything, it feels like it's going to be a permanent re-enabulation instead of something that, you know, is like temporarily re-enabled, deactivated, or whatever, and then, you know, told that we're going to be getting it again, only for it to sit in the Fortnite content vault for like a million years or something. Other than that, though, some interesting things to mention is that whenever you mantle or hurdle over an object, it pushes you forwards a little bit. So I'm going to mantle over this. I'm not going to touch my keyboard at all, and you can see I didn't go right on top of that. I went a little bit forwards. Well, they have actually buffed hurdling, so when it gets enabled in the game once again for Chapter 5, it will actually push you forwards more than it did before. Now, before it had a value of 100, that actual push forward value is going to be increased by basically 40, meaning that whatever you would go like a little bit forwards on whenever you did hurdling normally, it's going to be buffed to be not 2 times as far, but like 1.3 times as far as how far you would originally go. Other than that, though, we do have some other buffs going on for hurdling as well once it eventually does release, such as the max floor height increasing from 182 to 200. What this basically means is whenever you hurdle over an object, they have a detector to figure out, is this something I can sprint over? So this right here, I can sprint over, right? It will do the hurdling thing to it once I sprint over it, but something like if we go over here and we see this giant giant generator, I'm not going to be able to hurdle over this because it's way too high. It's taller than my character. Well, Epic Games is actually going to buff it so that objects that are a little bit taller than before, you know, such as if we look over here, something like this, you'll most likely be able to actually hurdle over when sprinting into, instead of this being your height limit, right? So they did a nice little buff to that, you know, making it a little easier for you to hurdle over those taller objects. Now, of course, you're not going to be able just to run in this and instantly hurdle over. That's still something you're going to have to mantle on top of. And then they did actually kind of do some changes here, which most likely is going to fix a bug in the game, which is making it so that whenever you're like ending the hurdle, right, your pushed forward distance is going to be lesser than normal by around 0.05 times, or not 0.5, but you know, 0.5 times, making it so that whenever you're going forwards, it's not going to shoot you halfway across the world just from you actually doing that forwards movement or anything like that. But that is all we really have to talk about when it comes to the buffs, because going forwards, pretty much everything we're going to be mentioning is mainly nerfs to the movement mechanic. So firstly, we got to talk about tactical sprinting. Tactical sprinting is a feature that, you know, has existed for a while now, and all it is, you know, the sprint bar in the bottom left, like this right here, this is a tactical sprint. It's when you use up that stamina to run forwards a little bit more. It's going to have its speed multiplier lowered by 1.4 times to 1.3 times, meaning that with Chapter 5's launch, our movement speed whenever tactical sprinting is going to be slightly lower than it currently has been for the longest time, and that is something that we're going to have to get used to, assuming Epic Games doesn't, you know, last minute or whatever in a future update decide to revert that change. And keep in mind, these actual changes and benefits and stuff, if the features are enabled in Save the World as well, such as, you know, tactical sprint or clambering, that type of stuff, they will have an impact on Save the World as well, with these changes taking place in there also. So, you know, this is something that you got to get used to for all of Fortnite, not just, you know, Fortnite Battle Royale or Fortnite Save the World. It's literally in every mode, including creative mode or wherever else you want to go ahead and play Fortnite in. But for the final bit of, you know, movement changes and everything else, we have to talk about mantling, which is codenamed clambering. Now, if you ever hear like a leaker or someone talk about the mantling feature as clambering, it's the same thing. Clambering was just kind of like the in-game, you know, codename for the mantle feature, but it means the exact same thing. So the first thing they've done is they've changed the input delay and lowered it from 0.3 to 0.25. This is actually a buff for us because it means that, you know, even though it's a slight delay increase or, you know, decrease, whatever else you want to call it, it makes it so that you're actually going to have the inputs for mantling activate faster than before, meaning that sometimes whenever you're going to make like a jump or something, let's say you go to make a jump and you have the prompt to mantle on something, but you're dropping at such a fast rate that, you know, that prompt goes away even though you push the button for it. Now there's going to be less of an input delay, meaning that if you're in one of those spots, there's a higher chance that if you're falling and you actually press to mantle or something else, that you'll actually manage to catch yourself and mantle onto whatever the object is. Other than that, though, we have some, you know, slight good things, such as the downwards, you know, distance push wherever you like get flinged or whatever, being multiplied from 1.35 to 2, meaning that, you know, the distance you go forwards, or I guess the distance you go downwards or whatever, is going to be a lot faster. The distance push forward has been decreased from 500 to 300, however, meaning if I mantle on top of this, instead of going this far, I will probably only reach around here, right? So it's definitely going to fling you a lot less forwards, and you're going to be closer to the edge of the obstacle whenever you mantle over something. It's a little bit of a downside, but in some cases it's actually going to be more of a buff because, you know, there's certain situations where you're on one of those very thin pillars and you keep having to bounce back and forth, trying to actually mantle on the object and stay on top of it. So that one is a little bit of a buff or a nerf depending on which way you see it. Now, the minimum ledge height distance is going to be decreased from 245/140 all the way down to 20. And I know that sounds weird, right? It's like, okay, so you have this value that's almost like 200, it's being decreased all the way down to 20. What does this mean for the game? Well, it means this. Whenever you're jumping from a place like down here, you have the mantle option showing up depending on the height, right? Now, if I'm jumping from right here, you can see that the mantle option is only showing on the downfall and not the uprise, right? That is because the total distance, you know, jumping or whatever else is a little weird. Now, what they're going to be doing is making it so instead of that mantle prompt showing up as I'm going downwards, it will just show up as I'm going upwards. They're making it a lot less restrictive regarding how high you are for you to actually mantle over an object, which is in some ways a nice little buff. And then finally, we have the upward start distance being decreased from 0.6 to 0.1. I'm going to be completely honest here, I don't really know what that means. You know, I'm a Fortnite leaker and I'm not really too familiar with what the upward start distance is, but what I think it might relate to is kind of like, you know, when you're going upwards, the start distance for you to go into a mantle might be changed to be a lot nicer as well, you know, synchronized with that other change we just mentioned, meaning that you'll be able to mantle on objects while a lot lower on the ground a lot more often, just kind of making it so the mantle feature is able to be used quicker and better and, you know, more efficiently just overall in terms of how you're going to be going about everything. So keep in mind, you know, with the brand new chapter releasing very soon, it appears that Epic Games is going to be doing a lot of changing, such as re-enabling hurdling, such as making it so tactical sprint is slower, and making it so things such as, you know, mantling get some buffs, some nerfs in some ways, and making it so grind rails are even slightly different. Now, of course, as I mentioned, the grind rail changes, while they do have a specific number for Season 28, being Chapter 5 Season 1, they don't have any changes in there as of yet, so it's something that will be evolving over time as we get more and more information. But, you know, it is slightly exciting to see that they're planning to keep the grind rail system or some variant of it in the game for the new chapter, which makes me wonder, what if for Chapter 5 Season 1 they decide to make it so that we actually get to keep the current map? Because as we know, every single chapter we get a brand new map and everything else. However, I feel like right now, in terms of how this map has survived and everything, we haven't really been on the map long enough for it to really be something that we could replace or anything, right? We haven't even really had too many live events. I don't think we've actually had really any live events, to be completely honest, for this chapter, but it would be nice to have a whole entire 2 chapters where we get to play on this map, and they continue to update it with some new POIs and stuff while they work on a better map or something else later down the line, and it would just be a nice little way to mix things up, right? Because whenever you hear about a new chapter or whatever, you're like, oh boy, it means a new map and everything, but it would be interesting to see if they do a new chapter where instead of focusing on a new map, they focus on mechanics and everything like it looks like they're already doing, and making it so that, you know, the new chapter and everything is just, oh boy, you know, they mixed up a ton of ways the game movement and everything else feels, and they're making it a lot different of a game while keeping the same aspects of the map you've known for a while now in play, while they do maybe 1 or 2 more live events, because we already know that we have kind of like 2 live events going on. We have the Durian live event, which is supposed to be for the end of this chapter, and then we have the Arnold live event, which is supposed to be for the start of next chapter. So we do know that they at least have 2 events going on very soon, and it would be interesting to see how everything plays together. But with that said, my name is FireMonkey. Hope you champs and champions enjoyed today's kind of like news recap. Hope you're excited to see all the little changes here and there to all the, you know, mechanics and everything else. And let me know in the comments down below, you know, what do you think about these changes and what are you hoping for with Chapter 5's launch in a few months. Until next time, I'll catch you champs and champions later. Like the video if you liked it, or don't, I don't really mind, and peace out.